Hello, everybody. This is DW and Daniel Whited just welcoming you to the doctor's clinic, and we're excited about what's going on this evening. This will be a call that could possibly make a massive impact in a lot of people's lives as you grab a hold of the content and continue to do your research. There's a lot to this subject. We hope to get through everything this evening, but we might turn it into 2 nights. You just don't know. We'll see how far we get along and how that goes. So we just want to welcome everybody. And Dr. Kurt Fisnick, are you with us, my friend?
I'm here, DW.
Man, you're sounding great. And last week was fantastic. We got into, ADD and ADHD and dementia and Alzheimer's. And we got a chance to hear from Andrea from Bismarck and her testimonies and what she brought to the call. That was fantastic. But in that kind of led us right into some other things that is even going to lead us into more stuff. And so tonight we really want to continue to talk about, how to change lives through prevention, which includes supplementation. It includes, eating clean, proper diet. It includes even exercise as well. And tonight's topic, as we're getting into it, we're talking about dysglycemia or diabetes or those that have sugar sensitivities. And Dr. Dish did a little research myself, and there's a lot of people that are walking around with type 2, and they do it for quite some time with either ignoring it or not aware of it or not willing to take it on and face it as a challenge. And so I found that to be kind of interesting as well. But let's just get into it right now. So, Dr. Kirk, we welcome you, and we appreciate you being here with us tonight and sharing from your heart. But when we talk about diabetes and we talk about dysglycemia and we talk about, even sugar sensitivities, everybody they say is going to, move into and become a diabetic at some point. It's just a matter how old you get before that happens. And there's a lot of things we can do to head it off. But how really big is diabetes here in the United States? Can you hear me, Dr. Kurt? Can you hear me? John Burns, unmute. Are you there, my friend?
Hey, DW, I'm here.
Okay.
I got disconnected.
Okay, well, we know how that goes. I was just a little bit wondering if I got disconnected properly, but we're talking about how big diabetes is and what's going on with it in our country. And, it could actually be titled as an epidemic almost in what's going on. So talk to us from your knowledge and information. How big is the dysglycemia and diabetes and sugar sensitivity?
Well, the whole thing, DW, is that a lot of people really don't realize they have it, and genetically, if there's a family history, it's there. But, just talking about dollars in the United States, the actual cost of medical care and lost time due to those people that are diagnosed with it, they're saying it's $245 billion a year just for the treatment and then for the lost time that we have because of it.
Well, that's pretty huge when you begin to look at the dollars and cents of it, which makes me think it's one of the reasons why you would not believe some of the diets I've seen diabetes experts recommend people, and so that's kind of a challenge. But let's get into even some numbers in addition to the money side of what's going on. What's happening in the lives of the Americans and those here in the U.S., how big is it there? How many's been diagnosed, or how many people that are admitting they have it, or and of course we know those numbers might actually be doubled, but what's on the books so far?
Well, DW, I was kind of doing some numbers today, just so people can understand how big of a problem it is. 9.3% of people have been diagnosed with full-blown diabetes here in the United States. That's 29 million people. So that's, in the United States, that's Americans. And so that's a lot of people. You consider across the globe, that number just goes up and up and up. But they're saying in the next 5 years, the next 4.5 years, really, by the year 2020, the American Heart Association has estimated that's going to be over 50% of Americans are going to have problems with blood sugar. And according to Northwest University, they're saying 1.1 trillion by the year 2030. So those are some really, really big numbers, and recommendations are being done right now, and they're saying just to try and to decrease that by a mere 20%, and that'll save billions of dollars on the healthcare expenditures in this country. You just figure, like, if you raise your blood sugar levels by 18 milligrams per deciliter, that increases your risk of death by 4%. And then there's people who are running 2 times the normal blood sugars, 2 and 3 times, and that increases that tremendously. And so all we have to do is talk about what can we do to lower the risk factors, and really, when for everybody that's listening to the call right now, everybody that's listening to the recording of this call, think about this. They're saying that right now, only 5% of Americans really have that ideal heart health, which is directly related to sugar metabolism. 5% DW. So that means 95% of us don't have, aren't taking care of ourselves properly. And so besides the 29 million people who have already been diagnosed, they're saying there's another 86 million people who are estimated to have dysglycemia, which just means that the sugar is not being metabolized correctly, and pre-diabetic conditions. And having that increases the risk of death by like 50%. So it's just huge numbers. And I thought this was kind of an interesting statistic that I read. 1 in 4 diabetics, so 25% of people who have diabetes, don't know. They've never been diagnosed. And then 9 out of 10 people with prediabetes. So 9 out of 10, 90% of people who have prediabetes don't even have a clue that they're developing a health condition. And it's 5% of diabetes is considered to be the type 1, which is really related to insulin. And I was sharing with my friend Bob on the way up here, that's really a disease of really it's an autoimmune disease where the body's attacked the pancreas and it's not allowing it to produce the correct amount of insulin. But type 2 diabetes is a lot more common. That's the one that we hear of people getting. That's 1.7 million people were diagnosed in 2012. And Northwest University, Northwest Medical College, says that 1 in 3 people will develop type 2 diabetes. And the sad part about that whole thing is if they knew some of the things, they really could prevent that. And the major risk factors really being that your family history in this one is really important, and then keeping that weight under control. So we know that if a person has prediabetes, we can reduce the risk of developing full-blown diabetes by 50%, and just by helping them reduce those risk factors. But 30% of the people who have prediabetes, within 5 years, they'll have full-blown diabetes. So that's a third. And just to tell you about family history, if one of your parents has diabetes, that increases your risk of getting diabetes by 15%. If both of your parents have diabetes, it increases your risk by 75%. So it's huge. But when you take a look at dysglycemia, when you take a look at diabetes, it is the most common cause of blindness. It's one of the common causes of hypertension, high blood pressure. And it's a common cause of problems with the immune system, the nervous system. It can cause depression and mental health types of problems. And then again, it's one of the most common causes of kidney disease, cardiovascular disease, and strokes. According to what I was reading with the World Health Organization, 50% of cardiovascular disease, so 50% of heart attacks, is triggered by sugar-related issues, and about 71% of the high blood pressure. So that's some big numbers. And then you start looking at it's the 7th leading cause of death in the United States, and we start talking about some of the things we talked about last week. It increases the risk of cancer. It increases the risk of dementia, Alzheimer's disease. So it's really something that we need to talk about, and we talk about reducing the risk by by looking at family history and then saying, okay, what can we do to prevent it from developing into diabetes? What can we do if a person has if a person is overweight? What things can we do? And that's where all of us that are on the phone tonight, that's where we can step in and we can intervene and help these people. So, DW, back to you there.
Well, I mean, it's, let's just do this real quick. I mean, to throw a little different angle. What when you talk about diabetes and you talk about what's going on in people's life, there's a lot of times you see people that are on the chubby side. They're overweight a little bit, and the discovery that we're finding is a lot of people don't have a weight problem, but they've got a hormone problem with the hormone called insulin, and a lot of folks, Doc, don't even know that that's even a hormone. You've mentioned it here, just a couple times in what you just said a minute ago. And so there's things we can do to help stop those insulin spikes from rising. So just with your studies and reading what Northwest was talking about, they could stop at 50%, but we could even do more. And so let's talk about some more blood sugar-related issues when it comes to increasing the problems with kind of obesity in America. Can you jump into that? And because, here's the thing. I like to see people get healthy, and then as you get healthy and we get the sugar level under control, and one thing that, you've heard me talk about in yourself is people need to get their fastest pair of tennis shoes on and run as fast as they can away from sugar as quick as possible, because it's one of the things that breaks down your system. But what you're also teaching us tonight that I found interesting is that this is a domino effect. And we catch it early enough, we can stop the dominoes from falling as fast, and we can delay that and possibly even remove an escalate of multiple other problems, because you're talking about blindness. Come on, that's a big deal. You're talking about heart disease, that's huge. Dementia, Alzheimer, hypertension, depression, mental challenges, that's a big deal. So, but when it comes to obesity and some of those things, can you address some of that real quick?
Well, I think, when we're looking at primarily like it being overweight and obesity, the biggest thing that I try and tell people is that as a society, as a nation as a whole, we've really gotten kind of lazy. We don't do the physical work that people used to have to do, so they're not building lean muscle. We're not walking. People just aren't getting the normal amount of exercise. So what happens is that metabolism starts to drop down. And there's a lot of things that we can do. I guess the thing that when I talk about, the first choices of things, people need to get into some kind of an exercise program, really starting to watch what they eat, cutting back on the processed carbs, especially the processed foods. You look at the number of people who are going out and eating meals in restaurants rather than eating at home. Those are some things that people can do right away at home and really change this around. If they started eating, even half the meals that they normally eat out, if they started eating them at home, they'd probably find if they made that food from scratch, they could lower the risk of being overweight. But the other thing that we talk about, as far as like with weight problems, I think looking at the Sisel lineup, the products that we have over here. We start looking at dysglycemia, which is blood sugar problems. The first product I always recommend to people is the Siseline, because it is a meal replacement. And this one's been designed a lot different than most of the protein shakes and the meal replacements that you have out there on the market. We use a special kind of protein that helps build lean muscle mass. And that's important because that's what's going to burn the extra fats and the extra sugars out of your bloodstream. But at the same time, what it's doing is it helps to control the blood sugar levels and to control hunger. And these are from studies that have been done on the individual ingredients. So that's really my first choice with that. But then also we can throw in some other things too, and we can throw in like the Fire and Ice tea, which is a great product because of the way that it's been formulated. It's got a sweetener that tells your brain not to make any new fat today. It helps to not create those new sugars in your bloodstream. So those are some of the things that we look at as far as as far as treating the actual obesity. But, some of the other things that we look at, we really have to talk about supplements that are going to address the autoimmune part of it. What triggers that autoimmune disease? We start looking at sugar metabolism itself and the heart disease that's caused by it and the depression. And last week we were talking about a little bit about stress and how stress causes increase in adrenaline, and adrenaline will affect the pancreas, and so stress can actually cause some insulin spikes at the same time. So we really got to look at a lot of different things over here when we're talking about it. The body shield. I like that product, and I'll tell you why. It pulls out heavy metals. Heavy metals trigger a lot of the autoimmune disorders that we have going on. We start looking at the brain vitality, like we were talking about, because it's got the fenugreek in it, which helps out with blood sugar levels, and like we were talking about, Alzheimer's is being called type 3 diabetes by a lot of researchers now. So we can address those issues with the brain vitality. Then we start looking at what Linus Pauling said, and Linus Pauling, he was a Nobel Prize recipient. He got it twice. One of the things that he said was that when we have any kind of a chronic disorder, any kind of a chronic health problem, he said one of the first things that you should look at is look at deficiencies in trace minerals. Well, our SpectruMax product, which Sisel has, it's 74 essential trace minerals, and I always point this out to people. When I say 74 trace essential minerals, essential means that you need them. Your body needs them, and it means that your body can't make them. And trace means that you don't really need that much. But these trace minerals, they help regulate thousands of biological processes that are taking place in your body right now as you're listening to this phone call. Every second of the day, there's thousands of things occurring in your body, and if you don't have those minerals, it's just not going to work right. And regulating blood sugar is just one of those things that takes place in your body every single minute. My friend Bob that I've been traveling with this last week, he's a adult onset type 1 diabetic, and every hour or so I watch him. He pulls out his insulin pump, and he has to check his insulin levels. So I mean, that tells you for the rest of us, we're not pulling out a little pump and checking our insulin levels like Bob can do just by checking that electronic pump. The rest of us, we have to trust that our brain and our liver and our pancreas and all of the other organs in our body are working together, sending the right signal so that these blood sugars are being controlled. Another thing that I talk to people about is just think about this. If you go to a Italian food buffet or a pizza buffet and you eat just tons and tons of pasta, I mean, just wait a couple hours and really you go from feeling bloated to feeling hungry again, and you might get extremely tired, things like that, because that pasta, it just turns into simple sugars, and then your body's hungry again because you didn't get the nutrients. Well, take another meal, and in Fargo where I live, we have a place called the Steak Buffet, and you go to the Steak Buffet and you eat a couple steaks, 3-4 steaks, piece of chicken or whatever. But if your diet consists of a lot of protein, what happens is you don't get hungry so fast, and so that's why things like the Atkins diet became really popular, and why high protein diets became popular. But if you take a look at using omega-3s and the Super Omega Plus that we have is a mixture of all the different omegas into one product. It's got some CoQ10 there to help out with the cardiovascular system as well. But omega-3s help control the cravings and it helps control some of the sugar regulation. But it's just a great product. I think it's one of the best omegas on the market. But you start looking at some of the other things, DW. When I talk about diabetes, when I talk about blood sugar problems, dysglycemia, I just can't help but talking about cardiovascular, because most of those people that have diabetes, they don't necessarily die of diabetes. What they die from, what they get really sick from, is cardiovascular disease. And so I always talk to people about the Eternity product, and it's got an ingredient that's had a lot of research done. It's called resveratrol, and without getting into a lot of information on the Eternity, I'm just going to say this: it's got the right amount of resveratrol in it. That what's been determined by the research, it's got the right amount of resveratrol that can actually trigger to reverse certain types of health conditions, and especially those people that have heart issues. And so if you have diabetes, if you've been diagnosed with diabetes for a while, think about getting on the Eternity. And then, like I said, the brain vitality, we talked about that with the fenugreek in it, but it helps out with that Alzheimer's, which is, again, researchers saying that's a form of type 3 diabetes. And then the whole thing about being overweight, the whole thing about having diabetes is that a lot of people do end up with having some sort of degenerative joint disease, which, is really just a wear and tear type of arthritis because of that extra weight on the joints, especially the weight-bearing joints like of the lower back, the joints of the hip, the knees. They start to wear out. So Sisel has a product called Renovator, and I've been using a lot of that with different clients, people that have back pain, and just really getting some great results with that. And even when you take a look at our healthy coffee, with the coffee, it's got ingredients that will help with the sugar and the chromium that's in there, chromium picolinate. It helps regulate the blood sugar levels as well. So we've got a wide range of products, DW, that I think really address a lot of the different things that are going on with diabetes and the complications of diabetes.
Well, that sounds pretty awesome. And, when we're talking about, for some of those that may not be aware of it, we have a product called Thermaline 500, and it's for those that don't drink coffee, but they want all the health benefits that's in our healthy coffee, because we know that healthy coffee is a game changer for a lot of people. It also has that chromium picolinate in it. And what's interesting, we're seeing people test their blood before they take it, and then 2 hours after test it, and they're seeing some good results there. And that's what's neat about this, is everybody's body's different. And one thing Doc's mentioning that I want to make sure that we kind of wrap our brain around it, and it's this fact: exercise is a big deal as well. And it helps extract the sugar out of your muscles, or not really out of your muscles, but it'll feed your muscles, because it'll extract the carbs and some of the sugars that are flowing through your blood and burn those up before they cause your problems. And then when he's talking about the Siseline and the Fire and Ice, those have components in it with a lot of fiber and a lot of protein that blunt sugar spikes. And that's what he's mentioning when he's talking about the Atkins thing. And a lot of people think the Atkins thing is just, boom, eating a bunch of fat and teaching your body to eat fat and yada, yada, yada. No, it was using a lot of salads and a lot of lettuces and a lot of vegetables along with your choice of proteins to blunt sugar spikes. So, and to stop the insulin. So, Doc, you're so on track with what you're talking here. I have a question on the TSX, because I've received this yet today. Rebuilding the telomeres, going back in there, can that help possibly at some point? Would it help to maybe revive the pancreas a little bit? I know we can't make any claims, but is there a chance that it could help give some supplementation, and then the hydrogen water as well?
Well, and DW, that's a great question. The TSX is such an awesome product. I mean, I talk about it a lot because it is my favorite product that we have in our lineup. And you think about this. I mean, if you have type 2 diabetes, right, and you start using the TSX, you can reverse all that. You can start to reverse the process, because it makes the cells younger. It makes the DNA younger. It helps reduce the stress in the cells on the mitochondria, and that's the part of the cell, I'm going to call it the nuclear power plant of the cell. And so the TSX is really, really important in rebuilding that. And again, like you said, we can't make any medical claims. We can't say, hey, we're going to cure all of this and that. But if you can take and you can reverse the age of it, of the cells, and make the cells younger, they're gonna have more chance of being able to fight off disease. And that's really what we're talking about. But the other thing is that when the cells are younger, they have better metabolism, and so they're going to naturally burn more of the sugars more efficiently when the cells are younger than when they get to be older. So a really good point there. And then I think what other product did you ask me about?
Well, yeah, was just talking about the TSX, and then we mentioned what the diatomic hydrogen water system might help out when it comes to what we're going through here with type 1, type 2, or busting through and helping the pancreas for those that are sugar sensitive. So just kind of curious about what your thoughts are. And I know we're just into this on the hydrogen water, but before we have you introduce a couple testimonies, I thought we would just mention that real quick.
You bet. Well, the diatomic hydrogen, I mean, that's so interesting. I started hearing about diatomic hydrogen water probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and I really never paid much attention to it. Like Tom talks about, you heard about these machines, and you heard about the water that they were, they'd give you a gallon of this water, and they'd say, hey, go home and try this. And, and I looked at it, and I thought, well, this, doesn't really, kind of cut the mustard for me, and I didn't think it was really anything to it. And they, but they talk so much about the alkalinity, and like Tom says, I mean, you increase the alkalinity just with electrolysis. It's not going to make the water so it's actually alkaline by putting minerals in it, and the water's not being, wasn't being cleaned. There wasn't a filter system, and so I didn't really pay too much attention to it. But now that I started looking at it, it's so important because we're taking the diatomic hydrogen, combining it with toxins, and we're making the cell work more efficiently. I mean, think about this, DW, is that when you take a look at vitamins, like vitamin C, for example, I'm going to use that as my example, there's certain receptor sites, or I'm going to say, if you're in your kitchen, there's certain cups or bowls that Helen puts the vitamin C in. And she'll only put it in those bowls, and when those bowls have something else in them, you don't have any place to put the vitamin C. Well, what a toxin does is a toxin goes in and sits in that spot. So if you have a bowl laying on your cupboard and it's supposed to have vitamin C, but she fills it up with something else, say, cornflakes, you can't put the vitamin C in there any longer. And so in your body, when you start looking at the different toxins like arsenic, that's how arsenic blocks your body from using vitamin C, and over a period of time it poisons you and actually can kill you that way. So when you start looking at the diatomic hydrogen water, what it does is neutralizes toxins, and it makes it so now the body gets rid of the toxins just as pure water. And what's the beauty of that then is it opens up these receptor sites and gives a place for the nutrition to go again. The other thing is that when we're splitting the hydrogen off of the oxygen, now that oxygen, that O2 can actually go into the cells, and it can make the mitochondria, can recharge that mitochondria, and when it does that, it's going to be a more efficient furnace, and it's going to burn the sugars, it's going to burn the fuel, the ATP, that much more efficiently. And so you bet, I mean, it's going to be a great addition to making all the other supplements work better, because it's going to make everything work more efficiently.
Well, I think maybe we'll do a call sometime also. I think that'll get into eating clean and eating right. But man, if someone can walk away and just think about it, just right now, stop the soda pops, stop the sugar, and because a lot of autoimmune diseases we have, Doc, they're self-inflicted. If diet was changed and exercise was implemented, and we're not talking about massive amounts of exercise. We're not talking about you running the marathon tomorrow, or being the guy that wants to swim the English Channel and or something like that. We're talking about just how far can you walk in 5 minutes, and then mark that spot, and then walk back home, and then the next day see if you can walk 4 or 5 steps further, and then maybe increase how far can you walk in 7. Then maybe 10, and just as your body's feeling good, and popping in some things that jumping on the sizzling, giving your body massive amounts of protein, fiber, nutrition is just crazy good. So we might do a call on that. But Doc, you got a couple guests on it, and kind of set them up real quick, and I might pop a question at them as well. But just introduce who you got with us tonight.
Okay, you bet. Alan, did you make it onto the call? Alan Hordell, *6. I know I talked to him earlier, and then I lost reception this afternoon, so I may not have got him the number to get on here. Alan, did you make it? He must not have made it onto the call. *6 if you're there. But in the meantime, I'm going to bring my friend Bob Shannon on. Bob and I have been friends since back in college, and I don't remember how many years ago he was diagnosed with adult onset type 1 diabetes. But I'm just going to let him talk a little bit about it, so that maybe some of you that are listening to the call, maybe you have some of the same symptoms, and you might start thinking, I wonder if I have that. But then, maybe mention, too, what products you use and what you've kind of noticed since you started using the products.
Hey, thanks, Kurt. Yeah, I guess, as far as symptoms and stuff, 20 years ago I went to some pre-employment screening, 25 years ago, health screening, and they said, gee, your blood sugars are a little more than normal. Normal's 80 to 120, mine was like 135. But I just had a donut and a Mountain Dew that morning. They said, you ought to watch that, but this is probably an early sign of diabetes. And what I did notice was the next couple of years, I was no longer able to wear contact lenses. My eyes were too dry. I was always thirsty. And eventually, I got into an accelerated fitness program. I was a pretty avid mountain bike racer. And in 12 weeks, I ended up losing 37 pounds, but my vertical leap was 4 inches shorter. And they said, wow, you lost muscle mass. You must have diabetes. And they were right. So now, 20 years later after that, I just retired this winter, and I was 45 pounds overweight. My average blood sugar was 180. The stress and the high blood sugar, the tiredness, all that was too much of a drain. I could no longer do my job. And so I retired, and I thought, boy, now I'm going to go home, and I'm going to have a kitchen in front of me 24 hours a day. I either need a time lock or I need to change how I eat and then what I do. And thankfully, I have a woman that loves me very much, my wife, Lalani, and she said, you got to try this Sisel stuff. I just got this last fall. And so I started using that instead of a bowl of cereal in the morning, and started the Fucoiden too. And that's all I did. I was already walking the dog 5 days a week, but I wasn't going out and doing physical workouts, So I just started walking the dog 6 or 7 days a week. And, I don't go to the gym. I just use the products and just try and be healthier and not eat so much. But 6 months later, my doctor appointment says my average blood sugars dropped 35 points to 145. I lost 20 pounds. All my other readings are absolutely perfect. Perfect blood pressure, everything. So I'm not getting older. I'm getting better. And I can't wait to see where I'm going to be in 6 months, because now I just started on the Brain Vitality, a couple of the other products, the Encompass 360 vitamins. And we got the water system hooked up the day I left to come down here to Salt Lake City yesterday. And so I had my first taste of that water, and boy, is it good. I can't wait to see what I can come back and say 3 months, 6 months from now. Thanks, Sis.
Man, Bob, that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, absolutely fantastic. And like you said, he hasn't become a triathlonist in order to get some of those results, and just applying some of the products. And now he's at corporate, and he's going to learn how to apply more of the products. And so there you have it. So Dr. Kurt Fisnick, anything you want to add before we close out this evening?
Well, I think that pretty much tells the story of it, and really, just getting people to take a look and just wonder, is it something that I have a problem with? And if you do, start getting aggressive after it before it turns into a major problem.
Well, I mean, it can either control you or you're going to control it, but something's going to be in control, and that's how life is. And I go back to Dr. Kirk. I go back to a quote that Sue Condon's grabbed a hold of as well, and it's a quote that my father has said for years, and I quote him on it directly, give him credit for it. He said, "The greatest gift that you can give your family is your health." And, by learning to eat clean, by learning to supplement and learning to exercise and have the proper diet and, and begin to make some of the smart decisions like Bob was making, he just said goodbye to a bowl of cereal and hello to Siseline, and he received massive results. And we have a lot of people like that. We're a little bit over time tonight, but what a great subject and what a great call. Everybody, we just absolutely am proud of you, and thanks for being part of the Doctor's Clinic. And so we're going to sign off here real quick. Dr. Kurt Fisnick, once again, a fantastic job, and we'll be getting the word out on what we're doing next Tuesday night, same place, same time. We will see you there and on next Tuesday. So everybody, this is Daniel Whited on behalf of the Doctor's Clinic. Have a great, awesome week, and go impact someone's life with your Sisel nutrition. Talk to you soon.